Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Player 3 Cup podcast. My name is Ryan, and we are here to discuss on episode 5 the Disney discussion. We'll be talking
Yep.
about modern versus old, Disney Plus, their acquisitions, their market share, and how they have handled all the properties they own. Just a little summary and some things we're going to touch on, and maybe some tangents too.
hmm
And here are my lovely, lovely co hosts.
I
You guys
are
I'm not
don't.
that lovely. I'm not introducing myself for what 10th time. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. If these people don't know who I am by now, they don't need to be watching our stuff. And I stand by that. I'm serious. There's
Fair
no need for
enough.
this.
They
We
should
shouldn't
know-
even have to intro anymore. We should just start talking. We shouldn't have to do this.
Isn't that what an intro is? You just talking?
But we shouldn't even. But here's the thing: we shouldn't even introduce the premise. We should just go. We should just be hitting the floor running. There should be no more intro. They should be like, "Wow, I'm so glad." Because here's what they're doing: they open this video, then they double tap YouTube like 3 times to skip 10 seconds, 10 seconds, 10 seconds, and they start waiting for us to start talking about the topic.
You know
Fair
what, dude?
enough.
I also hate our audience.
I mean, I really just despise them. I just really don't like them at all.
My
I'm not
goodness.
appreciative.
Just like Disney, we're on brand.
We are.
That's the segue I'm talking about. We don't need an intro. Stuff like this just happens. Damn.
I'm the
Anyways, all right.
people's
So
dude.
Disney.
I'm the people's
So-
dude, John.
So Disney. I'm not
Okay,
saying
so
who I am.
Disney.
And nobody tell anybody what my name is. If it's their first time watching it, again, falls on them. I'm sorry. There should be a playlist. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
So who has
player
more star
3.
power? Who has? Yeah, he's player 3. Who has more star power? You or Disney?
Me.
Okay, just making sure. I thought so. I wanted to
Crazy.
confirm.
Crazy. Absolutely.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Okay. So, to
So-
begin,
Yeah.
do we want to start with modern versus old?
Yeah.
Okay.
So for anyone who would be curious, modern is going to be post-Renaissance Disney era, and old is going to be anything older than that. We actually have a list of all the Disney movies. It's kind of disgusting. It makes me want to throw up in my mouth a little. And a lot of them are bad, actually. Like, it's kind of crazy how a lot of these are not very good, especially the
Mhm.
Bronze Age. But yeah, and actually a lot of the modern ones are very good either.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, that's fair to say. But in case
So
you're
what?
not...
Oh,
sorry.
Yeah, you
I-
go. You go.
In case you're not familiar with what we mean by the different ages, we're referring to, like, I guess, time spans, I guess. So, like, modern would be, like, anything pretty much from 2000, anything that came out from 2000 until now, and anything in the 1900s is old, or part of, I guess, classic Disney. So, like, for an example, Aladdin, the cartoon, is old, but say Big Hero 6 is modern.
Yeah, and
Just to,
all of the eras are clearly defined and understood by the 20-year-old children who can drive and are huge Disney fans that exist out there, and the 30-year-old children. Because let's be honest, the people who categorize these and are old enough to do so,
Yeah.
are probably
And
still children.
and you'll be able to find in the description the different ages and all the movies from each age. I will
Mhm.
include that in the description, so feel free to reference that.
We also have Marvel and Star Wars listed out, which will
Yeah.
also be in the description.
Yeah.
Just as a reference of all the Disney content we'll be talking about, except for ESPN and Fox, because they now own Fox because they own everything. So,
Mhm.
modern versus old. This is a very interesting question. Which one do you guys prefer? And I think we'll all agree. But just asking, do you have a preference between modern and old?
The thing is, there's some movies from both that I just don't care for, or I've never seen before, or I just don't like. And
Yeah.
there are also movies that I also really, really like from both. It's tough, but I think I have my answer. What about you, Dylan?
Um, uh,
I guess in the modern versus old debate, do you know what your
I
preference
think.
is?
I mean, I tend to lean generally like in all things. I like stuff a little closer to our time and
Hmm.
place that we live in. I think it's a little more relatable that way. But
Okay.
yeah, no, I would say yeah. No, I probably have a. I don't know. You're like you said. There's good and there's bad things about the old versus the new stuff.
Hmm.
Oh, okay.
Like
Wow.
I think,
That.
like I don't know. I think that the old stuff sometimes I like the themes of it maybe a little bit more. I think
Hmm.
they're a little more timeless in that way. Like
Mhm.
there are things you can show your kids that they would understand 100%. But some of the like I don't know if the art holds up as well and like the animation. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like I think I just prefer the new age technology, but I like the old age stories. Put it that way.
I
Yeah.
would be in complete agreement with you. In regards to the that how it's better now with technology, but the stories were better in the old eras. And for that reason, I kind of am leaning towards the old eras. I'm kind of team old
It's like, what do you
because it's
get?
just
Like, what's
like,
more important to you? That is what you ask yourself. What's more important? Is it the visual appeal of it, or
hmm,
is it the timeless storytelling aspect of it? If you like very visual art, okay, you might lean on the modern side. If that's not so important to you, and you like stuff that teaches lessons and embodies values that you like,
yeah.
well, okay, then you probably are gonna end up siding the old age, the old
Hmm.
art. But
And
Yeah.
tip and oh, sorry, go ahead.
Okay. And I do think it is a case by case basis, but speaking generally, I am actually very heavily on the side of old.
Okay.
And because like here's the thing, going to the specific era that I think is kind of the best era, you have the Disney Renaissance, which has Aladdin, Tarzan, Beauty and the Beast, The Lion King, Little Mermaid, Hercules, Pocahontas, and Mulan. Those are all bangers back to back to back. Like
Pretty
there's no
much.
beating that, and they fall right before modern. So I guess that is kind of like a gray area,
Yeah,
but
it's like the transitional point of old to modern kind of. You can kind of say the
yeah.
same with what is it? Post Renaissance with like Emperor's New Groove, Bull, Brother
so
Bear,
where do you draw
Chicken
the
Little.
line with the Renaissance? Where's the line post and pre?
I think the line is right at 2000. I
Yeah.
think, or let's see. We have the line 7 movies before Fantasia 2000, so probably 95 to 2000 is somewhere where the line is.
Mm,
Um, and
okay, that makes
obviously,
sense.
like having a thin line sucks, and it's not always the best solution. But we have to draw the distinction somewhere. So
Mm-hmm.
we're basically
Right.
saying that the fuzzy period is kind of the best. But even
Yeah.
looking at the old ones, Cinderella will always be timeless. Fantasia, Pinocchio, Dumbo, Bambi, those are all classic era. Like those are the oldest or golden era. Those are the oldest of the old. Then you
Mm-hmm.
have like the wartime era, which is all propaganda. We don't need to talk about it. It's actually just all pro-American propaganda during
Yeah.
World War II to make the Nazis look bad. Valiant effort. I mean, good thing to do. I think the
Yeah.
Nazis should look bad. Then there's the Silver, Cinderella, Alice in Wonderland, Peter Pan, Lady and the Tramp, Sleeping Beauty, 101 Dalmatians, Sword in the Stone, Jungle Book. I would say arguably that the stories are better, the characters are worse, and the animation is an acquired taste. Now, I think it's important to say that this animation, while it looks a little goofy at times, does have its own charm to it. It doesn't
Yeah.
have the polish of the computers, but like you can see the effort in the hand drawing, and a lot of people I think feel that, and a lot of people have a preference for that. Um, and I think a lot of people would probably say that the modern era is a little more shallow in comparison. Um,
There
like,
are
oh,
oh,
go ahead.
sorry. I was gonna say there are a few good movies in the modern era. I will say that like Dylan mentioned that like the older movies kind of teach a lesson and stuff. I think there are lessons to be learned from the newer movies out there. You just kind of have to dig a little bit. Not all of them, but some of them. I have fly
Yeah,
in my room. Sorry.
yeah.
Um, Like I think Frozen, just about confidence and all that jazz. Big
Mhm.
Hero 6 about just moving on from a painful past in a healthy
Mhm.
way. Tangled, I guess escaping like your comfort zone and all that. Trying to read
Yeah.
down the list. Moana kind of similar to Tangled when it comes to a lesson. And Luca.
Mhm.
Uh
I haven't seen Luca. I heard it was good.
Yeah, me neither.
yeah, it was pretty good. I've seen it. Fun fact, I watched it and then right when I finished it, we were going to record an episode of the pod. I think it was the Persona episode, and then that was when my internet went out.
Oh, okay. So I will say this too, and this is kind of about Disney as a larger whole.
Hmm.
If you look at old versus new, they very much embody the messaging of the times. So the modern movies are very much about self-empowerment and discovering yourself, and that is kind of our cultural message now. Whereas the old ones are more about the more classic virtues of patience, about humility, about family and community, and those are the more social issues of or communal or parental messaging of that time. So the thing to take away is that Disney is very much a business, and they will reflect whatever
Yeah.
the predominant message is to
Yeah.
rake in the most money. And it
Yes.
like looking at this list, it is so clear to see that, and it's kind of disgusting
Hmm.
because they're definitely pandering to you.
Yeah.
Every single one of these, and I would say with a slight reprieve with the Renaissance, with Aladdin through Mulan.
Yeah.
I think those are more stories for the story's sake, and like I don't know, like Lion King, for instance. I don't think it was really going along with the social keys of the time. I think Lion King is just a time of story of whatever. And I'm not saying that the messages of the old versus the messages of the new are necessarily better or worse. Just a good observation. And I do think probably there's a little more depth to the older messages as opposed to the newer. The newer ones
They're
lack.
very shallow, aren't they? Like
They're very shallow.
if they're not
lack a lot of
shallow, they're just they're like not nuanced.
yeah,
And there isn't complexity in it. Like if it's not shallow, it's just simple.
yeah,
Hmm.
It's just
yeah.
simple. It's
So
really just simple.
in
Yeah.
terms of the messaging, I actually don't think I prefer one to the other because I think both are really important.
Hmm.
But I think kind of they wear it on their sleeve too much nowadays. And then in terms of animation, you are right. Now, for the earlier ones in modern, like take Bolt for example, or Meet the Robinsons, the technology wasn't quite there.
No, it
And
doesn't it look dated? Like I think about Bolt and like
they look like they're plastic. Like
Yeah.
it looks dated. It did not hold
Yeah.
up well.
But meanwhile, Aladdin is timeless in my
Mhm.
opinion.
Weird.
Yeah, it's weird because I think there was like they needed to like get comfortable with the new technology they were trying
They're just
in
light years ahead.
post-Renaissance.
They were just light years ahead. Like
Yeah.
Well, if you look too, it's actually kind of funny. So we have the Disney Renaissance as being old, and it kind of is. Once again, it's the gray area. Tarzan is on that list, and it's the first animated Disney movie to have any amount of CG. They do the branches under his feet. So
Oh.
even in the old, they did use CG, and they used integrated 2D and CG,
Mm.
and it looks really good. And they
Yeah.
actually did the same thing with Treasure Planet, in the post-Renaissance era, and that also looks really good. And it's a technique they actually have killed since then. I actually think 2D animation is a lost art. I
Mhm.
think it has a lot of potential, and especially because you guys kind of know my taste, I'm sure you can see why. But
Yeah.
there's actually beautiful 2D animation, and there's hideous 3D CG. So
Oh, I believe you on that.
I really think that there should be integrated should be more common, and 2D should be more common. And Disney has given up on 2D, and I kind of don't like that. I think it's a bad sign. That
Mhm.
being said, I do like 3D CG.
And to I guess to like give out a hot take as well as bridge our discussion to Pixar, I have a hot take for y'all to digest.
Mm-hmm.
the animation at times in the original Toy Story is wonky.
Awful.
Toy Story 1, if you go back now and watch it, and I loved it as a kid, it's hideous.
It's
It's
ugly.
awful.
What the lighting is like wrong.
Mhm.
It's just wrong.
Yeah.
I don't know what's wrong with it, but there's like a concerning lack of shadows or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's so you used the word before, Dylan, but it is so plasticky. It is insane. The second you said that, I thought Toy Story 1.
No, you know what
right
scene
there.
makes me think about that? Like the one right as like I can't remember. Like when they go outside of Sid's house and they're tied to that rocket,
Yes.
and like all the toys are coming like and like collapsing in on it. If I'm remembering that correctly, but like when they're outside and like everything in Sid's room is so disgusting.
Yeah.
And actually, A Bug's Life looks quite similar to Toy Story 1.
Well,
They,
there
were-
are modern movies with lower budgets that actually look worse with 3D CG,
Mm-hmm.
which is
I'll give
crazy. Which is crazy. But
Because here we are bashing Toy Story.
yeah, and I want to give Toy Story all the credit. Like
It's awesome.
it was beautiful for the time, and
Yeah.
like
It's
it had a
fucking-
lot of effort, and they had a really bad technology
It's
compared
nasty.
to now. But
It's
it doesn't look
nasty.
good now.
I think
No.
what does it for me is the scene, and I guess spoilers for Toy Story 1 if you've never seen it. The scene at the end where Woody is like rotating his face and he's like talking to Sid, and then he actually moves his mouth at Sid and freaks him out. That right there is what does it for me. That's what freaks me out. Not because he's a talking toy, but the fact of how they animated it was so like disturbing.
Yeah. And getting this out of the way so we don't have to repeat it. Potential spoilers for any Disney owned property.
Yeah.
I don't want to have to.
Anything Disney, Pixar, Star Wars, or Marvel.
Or there's another property that I realized that they had. Shoot, what was it?
The
ESPN,
Fox?
Star Wars. Oh yeah, Star Wars, Marvel, ESPN, Fox, and
MSNBC, ABC,
oh my
Yeah.
god, you're right.
ABC.
Just a whole bunch. Just a whole bunch.
It's too much.
Is there anything else we wanted to mention with Pixar?
Actually, okay, that's another question. Do you guys generally prefer Pixar versus Disney, or do you have a preference? Have they basically merged into the same thing for you?
I'd strongly prefer Pixar.
I also strongly prefer Pixar because it just feels like the story is more believable and it's a lot more complex and complicated and enjoyable, because Disney, it just seems very cut and dry, very straightforward. But with Pixar, it's very complex. Like there's a gray area, you know, like in Disney movies, you got the good guys, you got the bad guys. They're clearly defined and you know they're defined. And then in Pixar, you got the good guys. You may have some bad guys, but you have that gray area there too, and it just makes all the difference in the world. And that's why I kind of prefer Pixar.
I think Pixar is like for a slightly
Older
more mature audience.
Yeah, I'd probably agree.
Because the characters are
yeah.
nuanced. The
Yeah, they're
storytelling's
very-
a little more complex.
Mm-hmm.
And I think alright, and like character motivations are just like a little more complex too. Like let's take Incredibles for example. Probably one of my favorite movies of all time, generally.
Mhm.
Just one of my favorite movies, generally. Could quote the thing to death. You could start it right now. I could probably hit you with like 75%.
Fair enough.
Like, okay, so take the motivation behind Syndrome or Incrediboy, okay?
Mm-hmm.
What is he's chasing like a feeling of so let's hit the beats real quick.
Right.
Movie opens up, Mr. Incredible's fighting crime. A young lad, Incrediboy, he coins himself Incrediboy. Mr. Incredible claims no connection, no relation to him, doesn't want anything to do with him, pushes him off to the side, ignores him, doesn't doesn't want him to be associated those names together.
Mhm.
Flash forward 15 years, and Syndrome or Incredible Boy is slighted. Buddy, regular first name, Buddy. He's slighted by this fact that he was pushed over by his hero. And for that, his motivation for the sort of complex that he gets where he wants to control people. We see that with his assistant, Mirage. He's trying to control her, have her under his gun. And essentially what you have is a motivation for Syndrome that's like a little bit more complicated because you're thinking about the relationship between, say, an idol, or a kid that's idling his hero, and what happens when your heroes shoot you down, and how does the hero react to, okay, like, am I always going to be like this guy that is praised by everybody? Like, how do I hold myself to that standard? Do I hold myself to it all the time? Like, that's complex too. Versus, especially some of the really old Disney movies where, like you said, it's very black and white. Protagonist, antagonist, antagonist motivation, protagonist motivation. Like, it's really not. It's
Be
like
good,
one
be
beat
evil.
after. Yeah, it really is. It really is. So I think I just prefer Pixar movies, and I actually prefer some of the writing too. I think is, like I said, it's like just a little more mature, especially now. But I definitely preferred it even as a young lad. I preferred it.
So I think that's fair. Oh, go ahead, John.
I was gonna say, I will say, I think the modern era has gotten a little bit better with dealing with villains, I guess. Just like making them a little less one-sided, you know, giving them like some depth.
Like, here's the other thing, real quick, Ryan, before you go.
I'm mixed.
Like, before you go, I just want to mention this. Like, I'm looking at a list of the Pixar movies. Like, okay, we can rattle off Disney movies, but you got to think about this. Toy Story, this is right in a row. Toy Story, Bugs Life, Monsters Inc., Finding Nemo, Incredibles, Cars, WALL-E, Up. Like,
okay,
that's elite. That's elite.
That is elite. You're right. Everything before Toy Story 3 and Toy Story 3 is spectacular.
Elite.
Yes, it is the cream of the crop. But I was going to bring up that right behind it, you have Cars 2. You have Monsters University, The Good Dinosaur, Finding Dory, Cars 3.
Okay, now let me make...
Not to say that all those are outright bad. Some of them are, but
Finding
not all.
Dory is bad.
No. I'm not gonna fight. I'm not gonna fight you. No, I'm not gonna fight you on this.
Cars 2 and 3. Are you telling me?
No. And actually, Cars is actually my least favorite out of all of those. I'm not gonna defend Cars, the sequel or the third install. I'm not.
I've only seen the first one myself.
I'm not gonna defend Cars 2 and 3. I'm not getting into it right now about defending Finding Dory. I quite like Finding Dory. It's not as good as Finding Nemo. It's like half as good. But that just goes to show you I really like Finding Nemo. Like, okay, The Good Dinosaur is disgusting. Monsters University is mildly disgusting. Brave is disgusting. Not a Ratatouille guy myself, but I know it's good. I understand why it's good. Coco is a classic. Coco will be a classic. Coco will be a classic.
I haven't seen it, but I believe.
Coco will be a classic. Incredibles 2 is absolutely filthy in a good way. Toy Story 4 is filthy in a good way. Soul, I've heard, is really good, and Luca, I've heard, is really good. So,
to add
I understand the hype around Disney. I get it. But I just think that Pixar is just a little more lovable. I think it's a little more palatable than some of the Disney cliche, cheesy nonsense.
I would probably agree. Now, you can agree, though. My point is that, let's say, from Cars 2 to Cars 3,
we're off a cliff.
A significant dip in quality.
We're off a cliff.
Yes, there was.
I've heard Inside Out is good. I haven't seen it, but
it's like stepping
Inside Out's good.
Yeah. The only thing Inside Out gave us was the Justin Timberlake single, but
what I will say about those movies Dylan kind of haven't seen yet. I haven't seen Soul. Onward is really good. Luca's really good as well.
There you go.
There are several of these I haven't seen.
So, like,
we included
don't
Luca
tell
twice.
me about Snow White. Don't tell me about Pinocchio. Don't tell me about Bambi. Don't tell me about Cinderella. I don't care. Lady and the Tramp, go kill yourself. Jungle Book, garbage. Winnie the Pooh, gluttonous. Like I can't get behind these. Okay, like all right, so like Chicken Little is pretty good. I like Meet the Robinsons. That's like sort of my childhood right there. Emperor's New Groove was like when I was a kid too. So like some of these I'm pretty sympathetic to, but oh man, some of this new stuff is really, really garbage. Like I don't like Frozen. I did not like Big Hero 6. Wreck-It Ralph was like, all right.
Yeah, Big Hero
what I
6
will
surprised
say,
me.
what I will say is, I feel like Pixar is also geared more towards boys than Disney is.
It is. It 100% is.
That's
It
true.
100%
like,
is.
How many princess movies do you see that Pixar made? Pretty
Yeah,
much
just like
none.
Brave.
I don't know if there's a single one. Brave?
Yeah.
Brave? Yeah,
Brave. And here's the
That's
thing.
it.
And here's the thing. Like, all right, and so maybe that might be it. But like, all right, it's like Finding Dory, but that's like a sequel. That's a spin-off to
And she's
a
a fish.
male-driven, and she's a fish. Okay, so it really doesn't matter. And I don't think, like,
I mean, technically, I guess
Ariel
Ariel
is.
is.
Ariel's
She's-
just a fish.
but
No,
she's-
she's just a fish, John. She's literally just a fish. Stupid,
Yes.
stupid fish. Throw her in the net. Throw her on the grill.
yeah.
Okay, real quick tangent. Something that you didn't mention about Syndrome, or a couple things. He has a hero's complex, which I love as a concept. Like,
Yeah.
a lot of people actually have that. They want to be a hero, but with so much gray morality and a lot of evil in the world destroyed, or like it's hard to fight for political reasons, a lot of people can't really feel like heroes. And that actually is, I think, especially for a lot of young men, is draining on them. And then also his philosophy of basically turning everyone into Batman is his plan. I don't think that's an evil thing to do. The only evil thing about his philosophy is being controlling and killing the heroes. But his ultimate end goal probably would have been pretty good. Like, yes, like... So let's say that...
But I'm going to tell you what was unethical, though. The testing of the Omnidroids was quite unethical.
Yes,
He
yes.
tested them on heroes,
Gosh.
and that was unacceptable.
I'm not defending that. I'm not. But to say that he wants to basically turn everyone into a superhero is a good thing, because that leaves less room for the supers to exploit the non-supers. Like,
But
think-
here's the thing.
think about it like a police state. If only the police had guns, they could exploit the populace.
That's true. They could. But do the heroes do that? Do we see them any time where they're exploiting the populace for cash? Like they're running a private, or they running some sort of private industry? I don't think so. They really are doing it out of the goodness of their hearts. So we have to suspend our disbelief in the possibility of evil in our heroes. Because it's not quite like a police state
That's
with only
true.
police
That's
having guns.
That's true, but the villains do, and then that would allow the civilian populace to also be more villainous, but also to defend themselves.
Gosh, I feel like I should have
it's-
rewatched this movie.
Kind of
Yeah,
a thing,
no.
John.
No. So this is actually just a really interesting debate. Syndrome is an evil person. You shouldn't kill good people. You don't have it coming. That's obviously evil. But also, I don't disagree with what he, in the end, wanted to do.
He's a Syndrome sympathizer. Let's move on. This is crazy.
This is giving me Maruki flashbacks.
You gotta go
Yeah.
watch Incredibles 1 and Incredibles 2 again.
Okay.
And
I mean,
Okay,
I've
so
seen
that's-
Incredibles 2 recently, not 1 though.
This is actually crazy because we've been stuck on modern versus old this whole time.
I
So
know.
do,
Yeah.
do we want to move on to Disney Plus and talk about the
Yes,
streaming
let's
service?
discuss Disney Plus.
do we have
We're almost a
Okay.
half hour in.
So Disney Plus, super useful, super worth your money, also disgusting.
Disgusting. Filthy. Should not be allowed. I don't know how it's so cheap. No, I do know how it's so cheap. I don't like that it's so cheap.
Yeah.
Literally have hundreds of IP, hours of IP that is just sitting there in the cloud. You stream it right to your device for $7 a month. It doesn't make sense. It's
Or about
because-
$60 a year.
You can get a good deal with like ESPN Plus and something else too.
you
Hulu.
package up Hulu, ESPN,
Yeah.
and Disney. And what I don't like the fact that Disney literally controls production horizontally and vertically, like in every sector that you can imagine.
Yeah.
It's so filthy.
Gross.
It
Well,
is
and
gross.
you know the long-term plan is get a huge install base, undercut our opponents, reduce their market share, maybe drive some of them out of business, and then jack up the price.
Yeah, jack up the price because
Yeah.
then it'd be the only thing we could watch.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
That is their long-term plan. There's no way it isn't.
Dude,
They're
they're
road
sitting.
to
As I
monopoly.
just imagine these scumbags sitting in a board meeting. Like, how can we just really, just like
Milk all
show
these
how,
franchises.
like, how do we just like tell our audience we hate them?
And then they go and they abuse children after doing it.
Yeah.
It's Disney.
Gosh, I was
That's
gonna say something. I
unbelievable.
can't remember what it was. Oh yeah, so for Disney Plus, another thing is, for the time being, I'll say this. I mentioned before, if you're not a fan of Marvel or Star Wars, you got some good content to watch. But if you're not a fan of either of those, I mean,
Then you still just only have every movie they've ever produced.
And here's the other thing: it's like, don't you people
classic
that
TV
have
shows.
Disney Plus? Don't you people that have Disney Plus already have, like, everybody else our age and up? And I think like I'm the last of it.
Mhm.
Doesn't everyone else have the box sets of all the Disney movies anyway? We could protest.
Anyone younger than us doesn't.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I think. I think I'm the absolute bar. Like, I think I'm the floor. But like, honest to goodness, I still have. I know I could go get them right now. I have Aladdin. I have Little Mermaid. I have Chicken Little. I have Meet the. I literally have everything in a DVD. We could protest. It doesn't have to be like this. If you can live without Star Wars and Marvel, which most people can, I know that. And we'll get to talking about the series, but
they also have Fox though. So they have The Simpsons, they have Family Guy, they have Futurama.
They don't have Family Guy on there yet.
They don't?
no.
Not on Disney Plus. It's on Hulu.
They're still under contract with Hulu, I bet. I bet that's going on Disney Plus soon though.
Yeah.
That had to be a contract thing. But they still have The Simpsons, they still I think have Futurama. And even if they don't, within 5 years they will. Because the contracts will expire.
That is very disturbing.
Yeah.
Like, you would never connect the dots between Family Guy or Futurama or Simpsons and Disney. Like,
okay. Let's just I think we've hit a lot of the beats with Disney Plus. This brings us to acquisitions. They should have never been allowed to acquire Fox. Never in a million years.
They should have acquired.
They should have been allowed to.
They should have acquired X-Men, and that's it. Just so they can work on their Marvel properties with the X-Men. That's all. That's all I'll say on that matter. Is they?
No, you know which one
should have X-Men, but that's it.
ESPN and ABC. What the fuck? Because ESPN is under ABC.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And first of all, how the fuck did that even happen? That is what I don't understand. Like, oh my!
You're watching a Disney Channel if you're watching football.
That's disgusting. Dude, they literally are just so involved in everything. They should not. Okay, actually, that's not true. The ESPN one, I could almost, now that I think about it, kind of care less about. It was the Star Wars acquisition that I was shocked. And I told this story before to you guys off the podcast, but I'll reshare it here. And check me if my memory is wrong. But I'm almost positive we were watching The Hobbit and Unexpected Journey.
I think it was Desolation of Smog.
Was it Desolation of Smog? Okay, that's the one I can't remember what detail, which one it was. Okay.
Yeah.
Either way. Well, okay, so we're walking into the theater, and I remember just talking to you, Ryan, about why did the government let this happen? Because this is weird.
Yeah.
Like, good for George Lucas. That's a hell of a paycheck.
It was like 3 or 4 billion.
It was $4 billion. Yeah, it was $4 billion.
Which is a lot, but also for Star Wars is, I think, underselling it.
That's criminally low. But you gotta think a lot of that money went straight to George.
Yeah.
Like
once again, good for him and like whatever. But I also think Star Wars is probably worth more.
Oh, it's worth way more. It's worth way more. George probably knows that. But here's the thing. You know what though? Let's just a little sidebar here. Honestly, what was probably easier for George? Sell that thing for a little bit too much, or have the weight of Star Wars on his shoulders when he's 73, 74, 5 years old? Yeah. You know, like, what does he want to really deal with? Probably not that stuff.
Yeah, and it's worth pointing out that Star Wars then was in a slump, and I would say Star Wars now is in a semi-slump, especially in terms of movies. Mandalorian is its only saving grace.
Well, anyway, sorry, back to the
Bad Batch.
Yes. Yeah, and Bad Batch. But yeah, so ESPN was kind of gross. Fox was gross. Star Wars was gross. I don't really mind the Marvel one all that much.
Yeah,
The
me
Star
neither.
Wars ESPN Fox was ugh.
Well, I actually think, okay, you want to hear something controversial? Pixar is the worst one of these.
Really.
Because it's so in their lane of like children's animated movies. For children's animated movies specifically, they basically have a monopoly.
Yeah.
Kind
Like
of.
you
The
have
only
you have
competition is
Illumination, which is
DreamWorks.
yeah, you have
Yeah,
Illumination. You have Illumination and DreamWorks, but still, a monopoly is considered 40% of the market. Disney is the biggest player, and Pixar is the second biggest player.
And
then
Disney owns both.
And
I
Disney
did not
owns-
know that Monopoly was 40% of market share. I did not know that. That's
so that's the general definition, and if you're higher than that, you're definitely a monopoly. You can be declared a monopoly with less market share, actually.
But
Or-
generally,
or-
the litmus test is 40%.
Yeah.
Okay, alright, cool.
So they're the number one biggest player and the number two biggest player. DreamWorks is 3 and Illumination's 4. Illumination is rising though. Illumination will probably overcome DreamWorks if they haven't already.
Are we saying that Disney is monopoly confirmed?
Well, we'll get to that. We have a part of the chair, but I think Pixar is actually the most egregious.
Yeah.
Fox is pretty bad in terms of like cartoons and whatever. And Fox has a ton of movies. Fox is like really them getting into live action, I think, a lot.
Mhm.
ESPN, it's kind of out of their market. ESPN is its own kind of monopoly, I would say, for sports.
And like, here's the thing, like, it did, and like, the other thing about it, like, the more I watch ESPN, and I'm not subscribed to ESPN Plus, and I won't be, but
It's technically Disney Plus 2.
I know, but it really doesn't scream like they haven't infected it yet, really. I mean, they'll run their ads
With their Disney
on movies.
logos.
Yeah, they'll
With
put
their
Disney.
Falcon and the Winter Soldier ads.
Yeah, they'll throw that, like, but like it hasn't really been too nasty yet.
And the thing is, if you're watching the Olympics on ESPN, you're watching a Disney Channel.
Yeah. Well, and Marvel and Star Wars are like kind of bad, but they're like their own things. I don't think they're horrible.
I mean, the room for like what is owned in that is actually kind of minimal. Like Star Wars, you got Star Wars stuff. Marvel, you got half of superheroes, basically. Maybe a little more, a little less, depending on how you see it.
They're pretty narrow lanes compared.
Yeah,
to
they're
others.
narrow. ESPN, Fox, Pixar, those are all like really multimedia.
And like that's the thing, like
you got
Marvel
your news,
and Star
you
Wars.
got your animated stuff, you got your sports. It's very broad.
The way I look at this is like, all right, ESPN, Fox, and Pixar, to me, just smell like malice. Like they just were like, we're just gonna get whatever we can for whatever check. Here's a blank check, like whatever you want.
Just write a
Marvel and
number.
Star Wars was a little more, in my mind, strategical, especially at the time. This is early 2010s. These movies are starting to really gain some traction, like the superhero genre.
Yeah.
In Star Wars, there was murmurs of George Lucas already finishing Episode 7. So, and obviously we know that story didn't come through.
Yeah.
But like Marvel and Star Wars, like I said, it doesn't feel like those felt like those were strictly financial, and then they like left them to do their own thing. ESPN, Fox, Pixar just feels like complete dirty business.
Like, they're a competitor.
Like they're literally just gonna grab whatever at this point.
It's
some
like,
EA
this
stuff.
is my competitor. I'm just gonna make them.
I'm just gonna grab it.
I'm just gonna spend a ton of money and turn one of my most fierce competitors into one of my strongest teammates.
Pretty much.
So and then ABC and NBC, obviously like ABC and like Freeform are like kind of the king of, family friendly movies, live action movies. That's kind of a new lane for them. I don't think it's too bad. Obviously for both of these, they're news related. I think Disney's big enough and like that's a diverse enough thing where it makes some sense. So I don't have too much of a problem with ABC and MSNBC. See, the thing is, the more out of their lane it is, the more okay with it I am.
Right.
Yeah.
Because then they're not the sole producer in that sector.
It's like Pixar, you have an issue with Fox.
Yeah, that's why Pixar and Fox are the two biggest issues for me.
And that's absolutely fair to say with how much that entails they acquire. Like, there's a huge list on this Google document of just all the Pixar properties that are under Disney now.
It's so much, and all the Marvel movies, but those are so like niche, I guess.
Yeah.
They're so their own thing. So then this brings us into market share, and just to get off with the simple question: is Disney too big?
Yeah.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. And most people I've encountered in my life agree, and doesn't matter. Everyone buys from them. I watch their movies. You all probably watch their movies. The government doesn't do a single thing. They're too big and no one cares.
That is what's more sickening than anything.
Yeah,
And
it
like,
is.
I'm not gonna be out here in grandstand and be like, "Oh, I don't watch Mandalorian." Really? Okay. What is my $8 gonna? Is my $8 really killing Disney? Really?
Yeah. Well, and if you cancel your subscription and don't tell them why, it's like you haven't done anything.
Pretty
Like
much.
they're just like, oh, I lost a customer. Maybe they're on hard times. You would need to send them an email and do like all.
And like, who does that get to? That gets to like it's like end of the 100th degree of employee down the chain from the CEO.
Yeah. So unless you like organize the thing, but it's so hard to organize because like
Who's gonna do that? Everybody has Disney Plus. Everybody has ESPN Plus. Everybody watches
Disney
ABC.
Plus.
Yeah, we all do. It's terrible.
And even if you do like, are okay with giving it up for yourself, young parents, they won't want to give it up for the kids.
It's so
Exactly.
They're
They're
not
right in front of Pocahontas, and you're done.
They
Like,
don't want to punish. They don't want to punish their kids for their Disney vendetta.
Yeah.
So
like I'm sharing Disney Plus with Ryan as well as everyone in my family. If I just went out of my room and told everyone, "Hey, so I'm not gonna have Disney Plus anymore. I'm gonna stop paying
Because my
it."
$8 is more important than like our free time or our time together watching Disney movies. Like that is what sucks. Is like literally there's nothing we can do except force the hand of government. Like that's kind of it.
yeah, which they're
never gonna do. Why would they do that? Why would they do that?
I mean, Disney literally changed copyright law to save their fucking mouse.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I don't want to throw on this podcast, but that just was raw.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
You're
and
good
so
as long as it's like X amount of minutes after starting.
Yeah. And so let's talk about monopoly in the creative industry because this is actually really interesting. So obviously if like they're 40% of animated movies or like 3D animated movies or whatever, however you want to categorize it, I think Disney's probably monopolies in that way, and they're monopolies in different sectors. And I think ESPN by itself is probably a monopoly in sports.
I guess, yeah, that's true.
What's really interesting, and you can cut it up and find monopolies in different areas, but I think this question of itself is, are single properties themselves monopolies, and is this intentional and is this good? So I actually saw a video about this, and it was in defense of piracy. Not that I am defending piracy, but it was a very interesting discussion. What they argued is essentially that, so let's say like Shrek is the competitor to Moana, like, DreamWorks versus whatever. They're competitors, they're 3D animated movies. The point they made was that they're still their own unique properties, and the owner has full rights over them, and Moana is a replacement for Shrek, and Shrek is a replacement for Moana, because they have their own unique characters, their own unique theming, unique visuals. They can't do the same job. So let's take engineering, for example, something I have expertise in. When you get a patent for, say, a pump that can do X, Y, and Z very specifically, well, I could have a pump that will do the same job. A competitor will have a pump that can do the same job, their own patent, and it'll do it with a different efficiency, a different power consumption, whatever. But both pumps can do the same job, and that's the takeaway. But that's not true with fictional media. So then, what is the solution? Because obviously we want the writer to be able to monetize, but like, what about Disney having kind of unsavory practices and harboring too many properties, and like you can't necessarily have the property you want, the one that is meaningful to you.
And the thing is about that, I mean, you can kind of make that argument, but there's also like some outliers in media, like in animated media, I guess, where it's
Mhm.
like there are other substitutions that you can watch instead. I mean, you got the obvious, probably the most popular being like A Bug's Life and was it Ants? You
Yeah.
got those two.
Yeah.
And then you also have like, I think, rip-off movies out there that are like same premise, just not as good. Terrible animation, stuff like that.
The
That
bargain
you,
brand.
the bargain brand that you find at like a used DVD store for like $2 or
Well,
something
and
like that.
this is actually something that's
But
in the
I don't know.
pharmaceutical. This is actually something that's in the pharmaceutical industry too. Is like, let's say Tylenol is the name brand,
Mm-hmm.
and Tylenol is their own specific formula developed by a pharmaceutical company. The patents or the ownership of these chemical formulas expire very quickly, which is a good thing because they want people to be able to get it cheaply to protect their health because health is obviously very important.
Right.
So let's say Tylenol is only given ownership of this chemical formula for 5 years. They have 5 years to establish themselves as this chemical formula that resolves these symptoms that is good. And then other people can make it for cheaper. They don't have the strength of the name.
Mm-hmm.
And so they have to sell it cheaper. And so you can buy Tylenol, which you trust and know because you've been buying it for 5 years, or you can buy the cheaper one, which you don't know. And so that's kind of intentional. And it's kind of the same in media where, you know, there are kind of substitutes, or not really. Like, for instance, for me, One Piece, or even for both of us, Kingdom Hearts, there's nothing like Kingdom Hearts. And Square and Disney have a monopoly on it. And that is intentional. That's how the law is designed. And I don't know if it's good or bad, and I actually think it's a mixed bag.
Right. Yeah. That's fair to say.
So what's your take on all this, Dylan? I'm curious.
What I do not like, I agree with the fact that you can't, like, the rules are different for fiction as they are for, say, a pump. Like
Yeah.
like you example. Okay, like you have for an example. But I don't know. I also like. It's a question of. It's not in the eye of the beholder necessarily or the writer.
Mm-hmm.
But I find like single properties. I don't think they're monopolies. I don't think so.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I don't.
No.
Like my gut wants to say, I don't think they are.
Well, here's the thing. I know you just love when I talk about this, but Persona 5 drops like a huge quote that I absolutely love. It's spoiler warning for Persona 5, but it's after you beat the final boss of the original Persona 5, one of the characters says that the real world is a product of cognition 2, which is basically what the perceiver perceives. And you made me think about this because, I mean, I think with this, monopolies in media, it's kind of like, it is on like a personal basis. Like, how do you define a monopoly? How do you describe Disney as a monopoly or not one, I guess?
Let me ask.
Yeah.
Let me ask you both this: what is your favorite media franchise wholesale? Like, what is your
Period.
single favorite?
Period.
Period.
Do you have an answer?
I have to think about it.
Okay.
My gut says like Star Wars, probably.
Star Wars.
I would have to probably agree with Dylan on that.
Okay. So my example is Star Wars 2 is probably irreplaceable. Star Trek won't cut it. Correct?
Right.
Right, but it's a good like substitute.
Yes, but the characters aren't the same, the messages aren't the same, the visuals aren't the same. Nothing. The only thing that's the same is the genre. There is a monopoly on Star Wars by Disney because they own it, and I'm not saying that's necessarily bad. What I am saying is this. It is exactly like the pharmaceuticals. You have a drug, and the drug is the only thing that can do the job. It's not like the pumps where several designs of pumps that are slightly different can do the same job differently.
Right.
This media, in terms of entertaining you and, educating you or developing your worldview,
Like,
nothing can do the job the same way.
Like,
Right.
you can't have like two versions of a lightsaber and call it a lightsaber.
Yeah. And so what I would probably say, and this all does come down to your personal interpretation of all this, I do think that the media is more like the pharmaceutical, where the patent or the ownership should expire relatively quickly. I wouldn't say 5 years like it's pharmacy is cut, and I think that is like too much for media. And maybe franchises are a little different, and it is a little different because like if you are actually doing things with the property, you actually retain the ownership for longer than if you're not doing things with it, which I think is really cool.
That's
like
fair.
you'll hear, or you used to hear, Fox making X-Men movies every so often to retain the rights.
Yeah, I did hear about this.
And
That's
so
crazy.
yeah,
It
like,
makes
they had to,
sense
like-
in the
they
context
had to,
of their convoluted story, though.
yeah.
Yeah, and then like they like to keep X-Men. I don't know the details, but like they like make another X-Men movie.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with Spider-Man, isn't it? Is that why we got?
Probably.
I think
That's
it's the
probably
same
what-
reason we
that's
got
probably why-
Spider-Man, Tobey Maguire, Spider-Man, Andrew Garfield.
I was about to say,
I'm fairly
that's-
certain I've heard the same thing for the Amazing Spider-Man movies.
Okay.
Yeah,
So-
that's probably why we got Amazing Spider-Man so quickly after Spider-Man 3.
Yeah.
So I would argue that single properties are themselves monopolies, and I would say generally that for the owners, that's a good thing, and I don't think it's a terrible thing for the market, assuming that in a reasonable amount of time, let's say 20 years, something that could happen pretty consistently in your lifetime, it'll be something expired, and you can see other people do things with the franchise. And that's not to say, so a good example, Mickey Mouse will enter public domain soon. And that is a good thing. Do you think anyone will see Disney, anyone besides Disney, as the legitimate authority for Mickey Mouse? Disney will still make Mickey content once he enters the public domain, and they will still monetize it. And they will still own that individual part. Like, let's say they like make Mickey's Clubhouse 2. They will still own Mickey's Clubhouse 2 for a long period of time, and it will still be theirs. It's just the character of Mickey won't be. And there will be people making fanfics of, or not fanfics, like legitimate Mickey products.
Right.
But everyone will still understand that Disney is the official source of Mickey, and they will still
But
go
it
to
won't
Disney.
but it won't be on any products. Well, like it's not gonna say,
Yeah, they can.
but it'll say like property of Disney.
So what? it'll be
That
like-
so all of that will happen. Disney will still be able to make everything that they've been making with Mickey, and they will still own it for just as long. The only difference is I can make something with Mickey and monetize it.
So you're saying it's going to be similar to how, like, for video games, how like third parties can make their own controllers. Say, okay, this is a controller for PlayStation.
That's a great
but
example.
It's not like an officially licensed controller.
Yeah, that's a great example. And so here's the thing: the controller will be like as official as anyone else. Like my Batman movie, once Batman enters the public domain, will be just as official as DC's Batman movie in terms of the law is concerned. But in terms of the public, DC will always be the preeminent authority on Batman.
Right.
So I don't think having them enter the public domain over the course of like 20 or 30 years is very unreasonable. And let's take Star Wars. So Luke and Leia and Chewbacca would all be public domain if it was 20 years. Rey would not be. Episode 9 would not be. Because Episode 9 would still be under Disney's thing. So Star Wars generally would be public domain. Episode 7, 8, 9 would be ownership of Disney, if that makes sense. They own their version of Star Wars.
If we're even considering it canon.
If we're even considering it canon. Which a lot of people wouldn't, which is really funny. But do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, I
you-
do.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And so I think public domain is something that's kind of been neglected, and it's something that's really good and kind of stops these monopolistic practices.
Can I backtrack?
Yeah,
for a moment?
go ahead.
What is the length on a copyright? Is it 50?
It is the author's lifespan, the rest of their life plus like 60 years, I believe.
Holy shit.
Their family retains the rights for 60 years after the author dies.
Dang.
And
Okay.
it used to be the author's lifespan plus 20 years, and Disney extended it to save the mouse. And Batman and Superman were saved by that too. They were also about to enter the
So
public domain.
okay, so
So is Lord of
Alright.
the Rings public domain then?
I don't believe so.
The books,
No.
at least?
But that's England.
Because when did
Okay, that's
oh,
fair.
that's true.
So I
That is
don't know.
England, so it don't matter.
I don't know about foreign properties.
So okay, so that's kind of weird then.
Yeah,
So-
it is.
But don't you see how this
So
would
Disney
hurt-
lobbied to change the law.
Yes, to save
Okay.
Mickey.
I
So-
guess
so
it
why
makes
would
sense.
But why? Because the 20 years was up. Like when did Walt Disney die?
I
Did
think
he die
Walt
in the
Disney
40s?
died sometimes in the
40s?
40s. It was expiring in the 60s or something, and they got it extended. Or maybe it
guess
was
so.
like, yeah, I forget the exact timeline, but it was like 3 years away from him expiring. And the fun fact, Disney actually tried to extend it indefinitely, and the court said, no, you can't do that. Everything needs to, like, it's unconstitutional to have something forever, like a property like that,
Yeah.
an IP. And Disney said, okay, how about infinity minus 1 day?
That's insane.
They really said that?
They did.
That's so stupid.
What does that even mean? How do you even quantify that?
You
Well,
can't.
Yeah.
You can't.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, so that's the thing, is like Disney is understood to be corrupt, and that's the thing. Having all of Disney's properties be in the public domain would not kill Disney, but it would help the market. It would hurt them,
Right.
but not fatally. Probably not
okay,
more than
so-
20%.
So I'm
Because they
looking at
make
this
good-
now. And our best friend Mickey Mouse
Mhm.
will be public domain work in 2024. There's a
Ooh.
now let me get this straight.
Mhm.
There is a 0% chance that gets extended, correct?
No, it could. It could get
What?
extended. It could get. No,
What?
I don't think it will. I don't
That's
think it will.
bullshit.
But it is not unconstitutional so long as the time is finite to extend it.
That
it
is
should be
crazy.
unconstitutional to do it twice.
Well,
That
that's
is-
the thing. If Congress writes the law and there's no limiting principle,
Oh
then
my
the law
God.
applies.
So we got January 1, 2024.
They
I
could
own
just keep
Mickey.
extending it and extending it.
they
indefinitely.
they could, but they need to convince Congress to extend it. Is the thing.
Oh.
Congress needs to write a law that gets signed by the president or have a supermajority that says public or
Oh my
ownership
God, this is crazy.
ownership is the life of the author plus 80 years or plus 90 years.
So the
So
life of
it's-
the author being Walter Disney plus
Yeah.
90 from his death would extend us like another 40 years. Say.
Yeah, or
Okay.
30.
Dude, what the fuck?
So that's how all this works. And so there's nothing wrong with public domain, and it probably wouldn't even hurt them that much. But it matters so much to them because it would hurt them. And
Mhm.
another thing too is if I write Mickey something and it's better than them, that will hurt them. So they just
Yeah.
need to be good.
Oh, for God's sake! This
So-
is
so-
crazy.
So do you
This
see
is
why
crazy.
do you see why I say that these are monopolies and that is kind of a bad thing, especially for how long they have it? Because here's the thing. I am more than happy that they own Ray for 20 years. I'm more than happy that they own Mickey for 20 years, and then we can both compete and see who has the better Mickey.
Mhm.
So that's kind of my take on it. And let's say One Piece too. My favorite media thing. Oda has a monopoly on One Piece, and that's a good thing. Now, for 20 years, the first 4 years of his story would be public domain. I could create a branch story, not use any elements that he's introduced in the last 20, and have my own version of One Piece.
That's true.
And his would probably still be better. And I can't have any elements that he's had in the past 20 years
mean-
that weren't introduced before.
All I'm gonna
Alright.
say is there's nothing wrong with a good friendly competition.
Yeah.
All right. So, because now my brain's scrambled. We're talking
And
about Lord of the
also,
Rings.
the most hypocritical thing. So let's look back at this list. Okay.
Yeah, don't worry, don't
Okay,
mind
espe-
Scramble
es-
too.
Especially the classic Disney movies. Snow White, not theirs. Pinocchio, not theirs. Dumbo, I don't know. Bambi, I don't know. Cinderella, not theirs. Alice in Wonderland, not theirs. Peter Pan, not theirs. Those are all public domain. Sword in the Stone, Arthurian Legend, public domain. They have stolen so much from public domain, and then said, no, it's ours. It's ours.
All right.
Well, and they're right, because it's their version, but then they own it for 150 years.
Right, because haven't they made like haven't other companies out there made like Cinderella movies?
Yeah, Cinderella is a Grimm Brothers story. It came out in, I think, probably 1600s.
Yeah.
And so they own their version of Cinderella, and I own mine. And,
Right.
and
Like, aren't there like a Cinderella story movies out there? Like, isn't that considered public domain in that aspect?
Well, the story Cinderella is public domain. Whoever made those movies also has the rights to that Cinderella story movie for however long public domain lasts. And I would have my version of Mickey Mouse for however long it lasts, and Disney would have theirs.
All right, let me. All right, so let's. I know this is, but this is interesting. So we're talking about. Let's talk about Lord of the Rings for a second, okay?
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
So because we talked and we said, what about the UK? It doesn't matter for a second
Mhm.
Did you
because
look
it
it
was
up?
manufactured. Yes, because it was manufactured right here in the US of A. All right, so all right, so this is crazy. So The Hobbit, which we know was 27 years prior, 17 rather, 17 years prior to the Fellowship. Okay, Hobbit was published in 1937. That copyright is straight up is 95 years for whatever reason.
Mhm.
Both of them, they just get a straight 95 year.
Mhm.
Okay, so Hobbit was published in 1937. That copyright is going to last through 2032. So we have, what is that? 11 more years. Fellowship, 1954. That enters public domain January 1st, 2050. So I
100
just thought,
years?
yeah, 95
Around
years,
100
yeah. Yeah, 95.
Jeez.
So that I read these dates, I read these years, I could not believe it. I was like, 2032 is insane. So under the copyright law at the time of publication, the copyright duration is 95 years. Anything that falls between 1923 and 63 is under that rule, which also means, and this was an article I was reading while you guys were talking about, I can't remember, but The Great Gatsby is the same thing. That book was published in 1923. It's about to be done.
So
Like,
wait,
it's about
actually,
to be in public domain, you mean?
Yeah.
So Mickey falls in that time range, so I don't know why he's extended unless it's dependent on the media type. But also,
Right,
I
that's
wonder, was he Steamboat Willie at the time and they changed him to Mickey to get the new copyright type? I don't know.
They could have.
But
That'd be wild.
I also looked it up, and it is now for works created after January 1st, 1978. The life of the author plus 70 years.
Oh.
We can all agree that that is way too long, right?
So if you
That
live,
is.
okay,
So I agree
all
that
right,
it's
let's
20.
put it this way. If I'm 20 years old and I just make a work of fucking genius, then I live another, say,
80 years.
60
You live to
years.
100. You live to
Let's
100.
say another 80 years. I live to 100. So there's my 80 years on my piece of property.
And
Plus
then another
fucking 70?
150
So we're talking about
years.
150 years, and I own that, and my family owns that. That's crazy.
That's
It's
insane.
it's too much, right?
Your
it's
grandchildren could be
way-
in charge of that property.
It's my great grandchildren could be in charge of that.
It is.
Yes.
It is too much, and so I definitely think that individual media are themselves monopoly, and I think that is a good thing for the short term. I just think it needs to be given to the public domain way sooner.
Absolutely.
Like,
it's okay to
and-
make it's okay to continue to make properties under that name, but if you're like hands off about it, if you're more laissez-faire, it'd be cool, but if you're hands off, then that's pretty sus.
And how many franchises that were really good have been run into the ground that could have been saved by a fan who is a better writer than the official producer?
Star Wars Battlefront.
Star Wars Battlefront, Star Wars generally.
Star Wars,
Star Wars
7,
generally.
8, 9. Star Wars
Yeah.
7, 8, 9.
Dylan,
Dude,
I think about 15 years ago when we were playing lightsabers out front, we made better Star Wars movies than Disney did.
We did, and we definitely had more
So-
enticing dialogue.
So
Yes,
actually,
this is all
have
true.
have I convinced you that individual properties are themselves monopolies, and the amount of time that they are owned currently is too much.
Disgusting.
Have I convinced you?
I would think
Yes.
so. I'll give you that. I'll give you that.
I'll give
Let's
you that
go.
as well. I'll give you that
Let's
as well.
go.
With that being said,
Wow.
let's move over to handling of owned properties. I think we have quite a bit to say, especially about the first 2 bullet points.
Star Wars butchered. They got the knives and just went, go.
I will say there are a few things they've done good with Star Wars. While it's very few and far between, I'll say Battlefront is meh. The Lego games still pretty good, pretty solid for what it's worth.
Of which,
Uh,
where is the
including-
Skywalker saga? Where is Lego Skywalker
I have
saga?
no
COVID
idea.
delays. I'm fine with it. COVID delays.
Damn.
I'm fine with it.
The television shows, the Clone Wars, the new season they did, amazing.
Bad
Batch was really,
Mandalorian.
really good. Mandalorian's good. I think other shows that they're coming out with are probably going to be pretty solid.
We'll see. I'm not super hopeful.
Like the Kenobi solo show. I think that one's going to be pretty solid. I think.
Yeah, it's the ones with like the pilots of the rebels or whatever.
Is that one
Like,
still
things
happening?
I think they announced it
Okay.
in May.
But
I don't
then
know. I'm
obvious-
trying to keep low expectations too.
But then we can't just ignore the giant elephant in the room that is hot trash, and you
The
both know
sequel
what I'm
trilogy.
talking about. Yes,
Yeah,
it's the sequel trilogy. It's episode 7 through 9.
And okay,
All right.
here's my thing.
Oh, man.
Mandalorian can be great. Clone Wars can be great. All the good things they're creating can be great.
Rogue
and
One,
that's good.
Fire.
Yeah.
I forgot to say.
Rogue One
is
and
awesome. Solo.
No,
Solo.
I can't remember the name of it. It's Jedi
Solo?
Fallen Order. Jedi Fallen Order is
Fallen Order.
good.
Oh, okay. Those do not matter nearly as much as the live action. Here's why. If the live action era is bad, then there's really no recovering it. Like, say what you will about the prequel movies. The prequel movies are bad. They set up a good era of Star Wars. Do you understand what I'm saying?
They do a passable job with it, and they do a better job than Disney did with continuing the story where the original trilogy left off.
Yeah, so the eras of the original and the prequels are fun eras with a lot to explore. There's a lot of expansion to be done inside media, and a lot of places. And episode 6 has a lot of places to go after it. I don't think episode 9 has a lot of places to go after it, and I don't think there's a lot to expand during the sequel trilogy era. Like, what are the side stories for the sequel trilogy going to be?
You know what's a topic in and of itself? Just the complete massacre of 7, 8, and 9.
Yes.
I know.
Yes,
And you know what
exactly.
sucks? I actually like those movies. Like, if they were just by themselves. But they just tie so damn heavily with Luke. They just kill Luke. Like, literally and metaphorically. They literally and metaphorically kill Han. They literally and metaphorically kill Leia. Why?
Yeah.
Why?
It
You
just
didn't
reminds
have to. And you didn't have to jump 30 years either.
It just reminds
That's
me
true.
of it just reminds me of that South Park episode where they're reacting to Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, Indiana Jones, and they act like something terrible it was done to Indiana Jones. I don't want to say the word. If you know the episode, you know the episode. I think Dylan and Ryan might. If not, I'll say it after we're done.
But
I'll show you when we're done tonight. But basically, they were tuning the same tune you're saying with basically massacring beloved characters.
like, this goes to a bigger, like, discussion.
Yeah.
I'm not much of an artsy fartsy type of fella. I'm not all about, I'm just a little more practical than that. My personality.
Yeah.
So I'm not all into the discussion about creative liberty. Blah blah. Okay, all right. But let me put something this way. The more hands, as the years went on, literally, the more hands Star Wars got into, the more people that got involved. Like, all right, here's what I think would happen. There wasn't a giant, massive crew with Episode 4, but originally called New Hope, just Star Wars, right? Wasn't a massive crew. Pretty good movie. Empire, we got a little bigger. Arguably the best Star Wars movie. Many would say that comfortably.
I think we
then we got
would easily say that. But yeah.
Then we get more people involved in episode 6. Like, I think we really hit our apex there with episode 5. Like, we found our perfect. And then we have diminishing returns. There's more people involved down the bucket. Episode 1, massive, new technology, new, like, just junk. Terrible. 2, terrible.
Too much CG.
3,
amazing.
Redeeming. I don't know how they did it. 3 is amazing. I don't know how they did it. But then Star Wars goes to, and I'm not familiar with the cartoons. I'm not gonna say anything about it.
That's fair.
But we get to Disney own, and now we are back on what we're talking about. And I hate what they did. I like them. This is what's so weird. I actually like the movies. I like watching them. I hate what it means for Star Wars. Because you put it in the hands of a stupid executive board and 100 people that don't care about Star Wars. And I'm not a huge Star Wars nerd. Like, I know every little thing about it. But I like the movies enough to say, wow, you really screwed me.
Yeah.
Like you get too many cooks. That's the phrase I was looking for.
Too many cooks in
the
kitchen. Too many
chefs in the kitchen. Yes, exactly. Way too many. And Disney thought they could outsmart the system with, we're going to have 3 directors and 6 different writers for each of the 3 movies. Like, why?
At least hire the same writer for all 3.
And I actually think this affects the comic book. I mentioned this in the anime episode. Like, Spider-Man has been told to so many times, with so little creativity, that people are exhausted with him. I'm exhausted with Spider-Man. And I don't hate the character. I hate how it's been portrayed to me.
Yes.
Yes.
And I think, too, so it's a problem in comics, and I think it's a bigger problem in Star Wars. It's the worst the problem has literally ever been in Star Wars, with too many visions of one single property.
Yes.
Characters.
Yes.
And so, also, just to make a point, how big is the Resistance? Jeff,
I mean,
how big would you say?
I mean,
I would say it depends on the movie.
I mean,
yes, it does, John. It's like 3 ships in episode 8. It's like they're basically between the Rebels and the prequel, the Republic size in 7, and they're about the Republic size in 9. Yes. That is insane. There are literally 3 ships in episode 8.
Yes.
They're literally all on 3 ships.
Don't all these movies happen, like, chronologically speaking, within, like, a year?
They should. Yeah. You would think so. But you almost
like,
have to
doesn't everything happen, like, very fast?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure in episode 8, there's, like, 500 for a whole galaxy. I don't think they can hold a planet.
Here's the thing. I hate saying this, but you almost have to look at it the same way you look at X-Men movies to make it make sense in your head. If you're not familiar with it, X-Men is very screwy with their timelines, at least how Fox has handled things. So the way people understand it is, okay, so every single movie takes place in its own universe, separate from all the other movies, and that's how you look at it.
Every single one?
Pretty much.
Every single one? Even like 1, 2, and 3? The original 1, 2, and 3?
I think you can exclude those as being in the same universe, but most, like, X-Men Origins Wolverine in its own universe, pretty much. The Wolverine kind of in its own universe.
Ridiculous.
I want to. Can I?
What is it? Days of Future Past. Anyways, the point is, you can kind of, to make it make sense, you almost have to say that for the sequel trilogy as well, because it's like, what is the size of the Resistance? You know, it keeps changing. Shit keeps changing. Luke goes from being a pessimist in episode 8 to being a little bit more hopeful in episode 9. Sidious is suddenly back in episode 9. It gets really balls to the walls.
And
crazy.
You know what sucks in episode 9? Luke's just like, man, I shouldn't be bitter. That's so stupid.
Yeah, I was wrong.
Wrong. I'm dumb. I'm literally the greatest Jedi to ever walk this galaxy. I'm so dumb.
Let me say this in 9's defense. There was no saving 9 after 8. There was nothing to be saved. They at least made a fun movie.
They did.
When they couldn't save the narrative whatsoever, they're like, Let's just put some cool shit on this.
Pretty
Like,
much.
You
They
know
pulled
what's
They
unfortunate?
pulled a prequel trilogy.
What's violently unfortunate and violently just a shame is the mishandling of Finn. That should be a war crime. What a
Yeah.
what a great character that they're just like, and like, you know who's pissed more than anybody is John
Oh my
Boyega.
God.
Like, he is so mad.
Well, they
He
gave him
is-
like a forced love story in episode 8 that fell flat, and then they tried to
It-
rectify it
no,
in
no,
9 as they did everything
Get yourself
else.
correct. No, John, no. They were playing with a bromance in episode 7. Then they wanted to play with Rose in episode 8. At episode 9, they're like, that dude's rogue. He don't care about nobody. He's just getting the job done.
No, he
What?
gets with the other ex-stormtrooper.
Yeah, Lando's daughter.
Oh,
Small
is she
u-
Lando's daughter?
Yes.
Daughter? Oh, I
Yes.
didn't realize
That's the
that. I thought she-
insinuation.
Okay.
No, that's the insinuation.
Well, okay.
Fair enough.
Actually, this
That's called small universe syndrome, and it's riddled. It's riddled with it. I hate it.
getting
Yeah,
back
I
to
know what
Disney.
you mean.
Getting back to Disney. Do you know why Rose Bacon wasn't in episode 9?
Why, what?
China hates interracial couples. China hated the fact that an Asian woman was romantically inclined with a black man. And episode 8 did terribly there. So to self-correct, they removed Rose from episode 9.
That is terrible.
I
Hey,
don't
what's the
think
last
that's
thing we take away
deserved
from this?
to the character, but
We
I
hate
get
China.
it.
We hate China. We hate China. We hate China.
Disney loves them.
Suddenly,
love
Player
them
3
so much.
podcast no longer allowed in China.
And you know that one lesbian kiss in episode 9 that's removed for China conveniently?
Is it
not-
really?
Wow,
Yeah,
how
not
convenient.
The lesbian kiss that happens in the background of those celebration scenes that's just conveniently removed for Chinese versions. Oh my god, Disney sucks. Oh my god, they suck.
Yeah.
So
They're
yeah.
like, hey, everybody's got their priorities.
I think that's the thing with how they handle Star Wars is they make good content for it, but they've killed its future. And
Pretty
everything Mandalorian is great and it's a band-aid. Clone Wars
Yeah.
great and a band-aid.
Bad Batch, same boat.
Yeah, they chopped off its limbs and then put some really nice band-aids on it.
Yeah. Which is fitting because you lose your limbs a lot in the Star Wars movies.
It's true.
Yeah, you do.
Okay.
Anyways,
Do we
let's
want to move on to Marvel?
Yeah, let's move on to Marvel. We have quite a bit to discuss. What I'll
have
say
nothing-
is
Yeah.
I have quite a bit I'd like to say about this. So the one thing that I like about Marvel that they didn't do for Star Wars, and I guess this is the segue into Marvel, is they made a roadmap. Like they came out with phase 1, they assembled the Avengers, they did it great, they did it fine, it was good. They teased Thanos, which was fine. And then in phase 2, I think it was, nearing the end of phase 2, I think, they were like, okay, we're setting up for Infinity War, we're going to do the Infinity Gauntlet, we're going to bring in Thanos, it's going to be crazy. And then
gonna
they
be awesome.
give us
It's
this
gonna be
giant roadmap of phase 3, including Civil War, including Spider-Man movies, I think, including the Avengers movie, including Ant-Man and Endgame and all this stuff. And they follow it to a T. And it's insane because not one movie betrays the continuity of it. And it's insane how amazing that is because Star Wars just fell flat with that with only 3 movies. The one thing I'll say about the MCU that I think is getting a little frustrating is Dylan mentioned, I believe in our last episode, I think it was like just getting like tired of like the same, I can't think of the word, like just getting tired of like fatigue, I guess, from like just dealing with the same movie over and over and over again. You can kind of make that argument with the MCU. It's like it's always the same comedic tone, the same fun, cool action, I guess. I guess you could also say, oh, you got the laser beam in the sky to end the movie. The sky beam. And yeah, it's like it's overused, it's overdone. It's entertaining, yes. Unique because of the characters, yes. The different superheroes being in each one, but it's kind of getting to the point where it's been done to death.
Yes.
Yeah, I think Marvel fatigue is very much going to start setting in pretty still soon. And I didn't even care too much about seeing Black Widow apart from the social aspect. To be honest.
We are having trouble hearing you, Ryan. There
I
we
said
go.
that okay. I didn't really care too much about seeing Black Widow apart from the social aspect. I think there's a lot of Marvel fatigue and it's going to start hurting their sales soon. My general take on Marvel is that they average slightly above mediocre. You know, some of them are kind of really stinkers, especially a lot of them in phase one. Some of them don't handle tone well at all. And then some of them are really good. And I just don't know how much of a future Marvel actually has. They're gonna need to be really creative if they're gonna do anything because they already hit their climax. They did,
Endgame.
like, yeah, with Endgame. Also, something I want to mention because I don't think I've talked about this with you guys. Can we talk about how unceremoniously Cap's shield is broken in Endgame?
I
Like,
can't remember. How does it happen?
Thanos just
Thanos-
hits it a couple times. He just has his giant sword and he just hits it a couple times and it breaks.
It chips,
It breaks nearly in half, doesn't it?
I guess.
Yeah.
Quite a bit of a chunk came out of it. Like I have a circle here. I'll demonstrate it.
Yeah.
So like, here's the circle. It was like maybe like this part right here came off of the shield.
Yeah. But
Yes.
yeah, my take on Marvel is it's never actually been great. The individual movies themselves, some of them have been spectacular, a lot of them have been just slightly above mediocre to bad. They've done something really unique with this large connected universe that teases each other, sets itself up. Nothing like it has ever been done before, and I think it is really cool. But I think its time is quickly approaching.
I think so.
And I think Disney did a good job with it. I'm not gonna lie.
I also believe that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was gonna be my takeaway. Is that I actually really didn't mind the handling of Marvel. Like, I think it was quite good, and I do agree. Like, the genre is like it's gonna die hard.
Yeah.
Very, very quickly. Like, and here's what and they know it. They have to know it. They have to know it. And like, here's the thing. Like, and I say this every time we talk about Marvel. I have to bring this up because I just so strongly believe it. It's like, or like, think about it. It's like, think about someone who's just trying to get into Marvel now.
The
How much do they
MCU.
have to watch?
About
It's
20-ish movies.
Yeah,
And 3 series.
but
and growing.
shows, and then to even get some of the inside stuff, you gotta know the comics.
And the thing is, by the time they actually catch up, there might
fuck,
be another.
two more
There
movies
might,
are out.
yeah, there might be another couple movies out, another few
You know what I mean?
TV
Like,
shows
it's
out
just-
there.
Like John, think about your niece and nephew. How hard it will be for them to
Oh,
get
there's no shot. There's no shot they're gonna be
Into
like,
any
they-
of this stuff. It's gonna
they'll-
be insane.
they'll never be able to experience it like we did.
Mhm.
And like with Star Wars, you can show a kid in the right order the movies, and it will kind of be like they've seen it. Yeah, and it will kind of be like they've seen it for the
I
first
can't
time.
believe you were okay with that. No, it's release.
Oh, I thought you meant our time chronological. Okay.
Oh.
Yeah. I mean, I do think the machete order is a really cool thing. That's probably how I'm gonna show my kids.
Yeah.
You guys are familiar with the machete order, right?
of what, Marvel or
Isn't
Star Wars?
that
Star Wars.
4,
Yeah, I know.
5, 1, 2, 3, 6?
Or yeah. And sometimes with machete order they don't even show them one because
Yeah, that's what I've
nothing
heard.
important actually happens in episode 1.
Yeah, that's fair.
But
Very
yeah,
little.
yeah.
Very little
So
happens.
Star Wars and Marvel are not the same. You can't just like show someone Marvel. Like it needs to be so much build up. And also a problem that I have with Marvel is all the movies generally take place in current year, whatever current year for filming was. So like
Yeah.
Iron Man 1 takes place in like I think
2008.
2008. Civil War takes place in like 2017 or something.
2016, I think.
2016, yeah, something like that. And
Yeah.
so like you don't get that the times are progressing with the characters like we have as they've been released, as we've grown up with them.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think Disney has created a huge problem with that in how they will be perceived by future generations because they just simply cannot do that.
Can I just say it's really funny how in Avengers Endgame they go forward in time 5 years to 2023, and because of COVID, we're pretty much catching up to that 2023 deadline of being current with Marvel again and being in the present.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know. I think they should have like basically ambiguously done it where like it all takes place during the 2010s, and
Yeah.
what year they individually take place in is just kind of left up in the air.
Yeah.
But I don't know. ESPN, I don't care about it
I'll
too
just tell
much.
you, like, ESPN, like, it's fine. Like I said earlier, like, it's not. It hasn't been just ransacked yet. I don't think it will be. Honestly, I think it's hard to do that with sports, but
Yeah.
it's really nothing to be concerned about.
That's fair.
Fox. They're so multimedia that I haven't really been able to keep up with it.
Yeah. I mean, their Seth MacFarlane franchises seem fine from what I can see from my angle.
Yeah. In terms of their live action movies, I literally don't even know how I would track how the Disney acquisition has affected it. But you know, like it's whatever.
Maybe
Yeah,
like
it's
just
whatever.
changes in releases, but that would probably even be stretching it there.
Yeah. So I would probably say that I'm not too happy with the Fox acquisition, but their handling of the Fox properties is okay. I feel like I actually feel like they're pretty laissez-faire with Fox, so I don't really mind.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't list Pixar here, but it's fine. We'll get to it. MSNBC and ABC, I don't really care either.
Don't know enough. Don't care.
Yeah, I also think that they're probably pretty laissez-faire. Pixar, do you guys know when they acquired Pixar? Was it maybe around the time of
I think it was around the time of I think I was like early 2000s.
It was late 90s. No, 2006.
2006? That is
Disney bought
than I thought
Pixar for how much do you guys think? Over under, I'll say 5 billion. Over under 5 billion.
Under.
John, what do you think? Over under 5 billion for the acquisition of Pixar?
I'm also gonna go under. This is very reminiscent of Jackbox. I forget the name of it, but yeah, I'll also go under.
Over 7.4 billion.
Oh wow.
Oh dang.
And then because of that, Steve Jobs became board on Disney and the largest shareholder of the company, it says. Because you got to remember, fucking Apple owned Pixar.
Oh, I didn't.
And ILM. And ILM. Industrial Light and Magic.
I didn't realize that.
I'm pretty sure
ILM. ILM, I think, might be Lucasfilm, isn't it? I think it's Lucasfilm.
Wasn't ILM like the people in charge of giving out the numbers to Jewish people in the Holocaust?
Probably not.
No idea about
maybe, but probably not the same ILM.
Yeah. I vividly remember hearing something about that in my 8th grade English class or something because we studied the Holocaust there.
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah, Steve Jobs was the founder of Pixar. How insane is that?
That's actually crazy.
How insane? All right, I know our next topic, boys. It's fucking Steve Jobs. Crazy ass.
Apple with 2 chapters: Tim Cook and Steve Jobs.
Yes. All right.
2 episodes based on each of them.
We just gotta.
Yeah, it's gonna be done in chapter 1 and chapter 2. But looking at Pixar, like Ratatouille, WALL-E, Up, and Toy Story 3 were all released under Disney. Everything before that was under Apple. And then, like, pretty soon after Disney acquired it with, I would say, Cars 2 is where the slump starts, and the slump lasts until Coco.
Pretty much.
So that's kind of my take, is Disney is kind of responsible for the slump, partially, and then Pixar comes back. Because literally, I do not think Pixar put out anything bad before Disney. Anything even remotely bad. Everything was spectacular.
So before
short of Cars.
So before we end today's episode, I do have one last hot take to make. You mentioned Coco a few times. This might be a hot take. I'm not entirely sure. I've never seen Coco.
Yeah, me neither. I'm just uninformed about it. I've heard great things.
Ditto. Anyways, with that being said, is there anything we want to discuss before we do player rankings?
No, this is one of my favorite episodes. That Monopoly talk was awesome.
It was insane. All right, so I am ready to type out the re-rankings. So let's start with player 3. Who do we think player 3 is? Just say a name.
You have no idea who I'm pointing to. It's whatever
No,
your
I
perspective is.
Okay. Player 3. 3, 2, 1.
John.
Okay.
I hate to do it to you.
I don't. I love it. I love it. You're player 3.
Thanks. Okay. Player 2. 3, 2, 1. Dylan.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then
Okay.
Ryan's player 1.
It's easy to get player 1 for me because I've literally written the outlines for these, so
Yeah.
I have a better idea of
You're
what we're
versed.
talking about.
You're versed.
Yeah.
Well,
I'll set up. I really am. I really love the Apple conversation. I love the history of Apple, so I'll set that one up. I think that's
You'll do that one. Okay.
I got the Apple
Okay.
one. Yeah.
that will be unfortunately in season 2.
Yeah. I would. Yeah. We'll talk about it off screen. I would be interested in increasing the frequency of these, but
Oh
that
yeah, me
depends on
too.
everyone's schedule.
Next time we're going to talk about Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, and it's going to be the first part of that discussion, and it is also going to be our season finale of season 1 of the Player 3 podcast.
So yeah, and this first episode will be before the last DLC releases, and then we'll have a follow-up after the last DLC character releases. It'll be nice to have one where we can speculate and one where we talk about the
how
wrap-up.
disappointed we are.
I
Yeah,
mean,
we
maybe
wrap up the game.
when are we thinking of doing season 2? Should we discuss this now or when we're
We'll
done with the
discuss it
episode? All right. Anyways, hope you all enjoyed this episode where we discussed all things Disney and monopolies and all things Disney owns.
Yeah, thanks a bunch.
All right. See
Bye.
you until next time.